Okay, so let's talk about the components of weather. Weather is simply the condition of Earth's atmosphere at a certain time and place. Weather changes based on where you're at and what time it is. Time of the year, time of the day, all going to impact weather. And the reason why atmosphere plays such a predominant role in the weather unit is because the condition of the atmosphere is going to change the weather that we're experiencing. Now, there's several things that are describing weather. Visibility describes weather, wind describes weather, air pressure, precipitation, humidity, and temperature. Some of those you already know about. Some of those may be new terms. I don't hit on temperature or wind again because those are things that we've already heard of. As well as precipitation. But let's start with humidity. We all know what humidity is. We've all heard of it, but do we really know why it's important to weather? The humidity is how much water vapor we have in the air. So however much water we have is going to be our humid level. If you've ever heard anyone refer to the air as very sticky, it's because there's more water in the air, and that's where you're getting that sticky feel from. There's relative humidity and there's absolute humidity. Relative humidity is the amount of water vapor in the air compared to the water vapor needed to reach saturation. So it's basically like how much is in there versus it's the sum total, and that is your relative humidity. Then you have your absolute humidity, which is how much water vapor is in the air is capable of holding together. Your absolute highest amount of humidity it can hold. That's your absolute humidity. Whereas your relative humidity is the amount of the amount of water vapor in the air compared to how much it needs to reach saturation. Air pressure. Air pressure is the force of air molecules pushing on an area. We don't feel air pressure because it's going to push on us in all directions. We don't feel it pushing us one way or the other because it's going to be equal, pushing us in all directions. And your air pressure is going to change as your altitude increases. So as you go up or down in altitude, your air pressure will either increase or decrease. For instance, thinking about when you're riding on an airplane. Many people chew gum to prevent their ears from popping on an airplane because your air pressure is changing as you go up, 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 and up in the airplane. And the same for going back down. As you're landing the airplane and going down and you're decreasing in elevation, you're going to have different air pressure as well. Visibility should be pretty easy for us to understand that it's whether we can see through the air or not, the transparency of the atmosphere. All right, so those are the different components of weather. Now, oftentimes people will use the terms weather and climate interchangeably. They are not actually interchangeable. They are different. Climate is going to describe the patterns of weather over a long period of time, whereas weather is going to talk about specific days or specific hours in the day. So weather is going to be a lot more specific to a specific time, whereas climate is going to be over a long period of time. And climate's only going to be described by two things, and that's temperature and precipitation. It's not going to be described by anything besides those two. What things can affect the climate? Topography, the wind patterns and transfer of energy. There's so many things to learn about the different wind patterns and how it affects the currents in the oceans and the transferring of energy. Reminder that we get all of our energy from the sun. I shouldn't say all. We get most of our energy from the sun. We can also get some of our energy from Earth's core. But the wind patterns that we experience here on Earth will affect the climate that we experience, whether it's warmer or colder, or there's less energy or more energy being absorbed. Elevation, how high up you are. Elevation can cause temperature changes as well. As you work up or down, your temperature is going to change. Latitude, the amount of solar energy it receives, so where it's at on the planet Earth in comparison to the sun. Different areas are going to receive more solar energy than others, so the latitude matters. Bodies of water. Water absorbs energy slower than land does. So the more water you have, the less energy is absorbing. Whereas if you have more land, more energy is being absorbed because land can take in that energy faster than water can. And then finally, your ocean currents, which kind of plays in as well with those wind patterns. Cool and warm currents affect your air temperature. If you've got really warm water or really cool water, it's going to affect the air that's outside of the ocean or whichever body of water you're talking to. A lot of times people will describe the air when you're in a pool. Is the air feeling really cold when you get out, or is it feeling really warm because the water's really cold? So that's going to affect the temperatures you're feeling as how cold or how warm those currents are. Forecasting. So the forecasting component of this unit is a very real world practical thing to understand, because when you watch the weather, you have to be able to understand what the different weather maps are telling you so that you can make sure you plan your day accordingly. So weather forecasting is the analysis of scientific data to predict future weather conditions. And there are 8 major elements of weather forecasting, which include temperature, humidity, wind direction, wind speed, clouds, precipitation, atmospheric pressure, and visibility. So getting on to those weather map symbols. There are 2 types of weather maps we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about station models, and then we're going to talk about surface weather maps, which look like this. Okay, so let me talk about the station models first. They have small circles surrounded by a set of symbol and numbers. So this is their small circle right here, and then it's going to be surrounded by numbers and different symbols. And as you can see in here, the different symbols are labeled so you can see what it is. 138 right here is your air pressure. Your 3 is your pressure tendency, which we don't really end up talking about. Some of these are more relevant to us than other. Cloud coverage is how the small circle is shaded in. You know, if it's only halfway shaded in, that's 50% cloud coverage. If it's not shaded in at all, that means it's clear. There's no cloud coverage. You got your dew point here. You got your temperature. And then the direction of the wind is where the little leg that comes off of here is going to be. If your direction of the wind's going down, your leg would be down here. So that leg can move depending on where the direction is. And then finally, the number of little notches you have on here is how your wind speed is how fast the wind is going. So it can display your temperature, your wind speed, your wind direction, cloud coverage, air pressure, and dew point. All right, surface weather maps. It's going to display air pressure with a capital L or capital H for high or low air pressure. And it has what's called isobars. These are your isobars, the little gray things in here, all over the map. If you've ever wondered what those are, they're called isobars. It can also, these weather maps can also show you the location of fronts and may even show you some precipitation. So you can see the high and low pressure systems. You got the big H's and the big L's. And then you have some air masses as well. The blue triangle symbols show a cold air mass. The red half circles are going to show a warm air mass. So those are those different symbols. On this particular one, I do not see any precipitation symbols. All right, so this concludes our notes for this unit. It's nice and short and sweet. So please make sure you have all of your notes completed on your interactive notebook. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.